60 seconds. Take your seats, guys. The last lecture of the conference. My slides are dead. This is the first information. The second is, it was a permanent marker. I cannot erase it, and I cannot write anything. But it is a perfect example of one skill, one life skill, that is really useful and really essential in your lives. What is it?
Improvisation. You don't care. Humor.
Flexibility.
The ability to let go. Just to let go. When there is something you cannot change, you can always let go. Just right now. Yes, this is acceptance.
What if we turn it on upside down? Maybe there is another whiteboard behind? The other side of the same.
Just let go. Are we rolling?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Have you seen the homeless guy at the Hauptbahnhof?
Yes.
Jesus-like. He looks
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Jesus.
with the pen.
And he's not Tommy.
Okay. He's called Tommy.
I met him twice and he looked very happy, you know? He seemed very happy. And I was thinking, does he know anything about psychology? I don't think so. So, do we actually need psychology to experience happiness in life, to experience contentment? Some people don't need it. In default, they are just content. Just by intuition, I don't know how. Some people can use very useful psychological tools to really improve their lives. I had a student once. I was teaching him Spanish, and he was very motivated, and he was a psychologist. He just graduated at the psychology faculty. And I asked him a question, how is it to be a psychologist? And he says, I know all the definitions, I know all the models, I can give you all the exceptions on the examples. I can tell you 27 symptoms of schizophrenia. But there is only one problem. I cannot help people. And that was the moment when I thought, well, psychology sucks. If this guy spent 5 years at the university and he has no ability to help people, why would we care about psychology anyway? Do you care about psychology? Well, I do, sometimes. Before I start speaking about the tools of modern psychology, first information is that psychology sucks, but the second is that modern psychology doesn't exist. So if you feel confused right now, very good. Oh, thank you very much. When I say modern psychology doesn't exist, I mean all the concepts that we are using in many life zones today, they're not new. They have just new names. This is the same contents, but in a new container. Like when you take, for example, public speaking. We have many public speaking courses nowadays who seem to be very modern, but when you look deeply into it, it all comes from Aristotle, from the art of rhetoric. The basic principles have not changed for thousands of years. If you look at the minimalism and simplicity movement, just read Seneca, and you will know it's not a new concept. So, does it really exist or not? Well, the new container exists. And psychology can help us if it makes us happier, healthier, both physically and mentally, or more productive. Anything else is just a waste of time. I have a friend who is a professional entertainer, animator. To animate means to bring back to life. And the first time he went to Canary Island 3 years ago to work there, after 2 weeks of doing it, well, he had to smile all the time. That was the first condition to do this job. So he had to smile, and after 2 weeks of smiling, he's a very optimistic guy, but he said after 2 weeks of smiling, he was just so fed up with smiling, he got enough of it. So even this can be too much. But anyway, after 2 weeks, his boss came to him, and he said, Carl, tomorrow, no, that was actually in 1 hour, you have a yoga class. And he said, yeah, great, I always wanted to try yoga. So many friends told me it's fun stuff. It's a great body work that transforms you. And his boss looked at him and said, you don't understand me, Carl. You are the instructor. And he handed him a DVD, 12 minutes long. And 1 hour later, he was supposed to run a 1 hour and a half yoga classes for people. Did he succeed?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah.
People loved him. After these 2 hours, they actually prolonged that to 2 hours. They were so excited, they started asking him questions like, what kind of yoga is that? Is that pranayama yoga? Is it hatha yoga? He said, this is fun yoga. And they asked him, how long have you been doing this? And he said, well, I did a course, which was true because he watched the DVD, 12 minutes long. But why he succeeded is there was some phenomenon happening, some phenomenon described by positive psychology. Because when it comes to human happiness, are you even interested in being happy?
Yeah.
When it comes to human happiness, there are 3 levels of it, researched by positive psychologists. One is just pleasure, hedonistic life, like nightlife in Berlin. Something that we want to forget. Yes, Salvatore, I'm talking about you. There is another level, the state in which we somehow disappear. The state, also called as the flow state. And many of you, I think some of you are the masters of the flow state. Some of you are in the flow state from time to time, and some of you can get into flow state much more often. What is it anyway? This is a state when you somehow become the activity. And you don't have any inner voice criticizing you. You don't even think about it, but you and your activity. Like playing guitar in this case by Pat Metheny. By the way, I went to his concert, it took 3 hours, and he looks like this for 3 hours. Completely life transforming. It was 8 years ago, and I was just speechless after the 3 hours. Then I decided this type of life is something for me, and this type of life is also something for you, because you are so much not normal. You're freaks, guys. Just like me. And why I'm saying that? Well, normal people say, like, hello, how are you? And they don't even expect the answer. But in this case, that was in the first day, I think. It was like, hello, how's yours Icelandic? And you really want to know. So this is the difference. But I feel blessed of being in this wonderful community, because for the rest of my life, I want to be surrounded by freaks like you. What is so special about this flow state? And does it happen without our control, or can we actually create the condition to get into it? How do you think? Because normally this is very intuitive. Sometimes you just happen to be in the flow state. Like, probably you know the podcast, Language is Culture. When I spoke to David, when he's a radio host, he's in the flow state. When I spoke to most of you for more than 20 minutes, our conversation was the perfect example of the flow state. First thing you can notice is that time runs completely differently. When you do something for hours, but it doesn't feel like hours. It feels like minutes. Just like yesterday party, yes, Salvatore. Can we create flow? Absolutely yes. There is a fantastic book called Flow. You can get it, but these are 3 most important conditions that has to be met. And these are conditions that were met by my friend Carl, who was the yoga master after 12 minutes. First of all, we need to know what to do and how to do it. It has to be clear. When you have a conversation goal-oriented, you know the subject, you know how to run this conversation. When you have an interview, there is a plan, you have questions, you have the time limit, time frame. It applies perfectly to this Pomodoro technique Claudia was talking about. When you have a time frame, you know what to do and how to do it in this specific time. So when we set goals like this, it's much easier. Second condition is that feedback is immediate. When you talk with somebody, feedback is immediate because there is a conversation going on. It's not just I say something, you say something. There is something common going on. And this is the feedback that you get all the time. When you're a tennis player, the feedback is the ball that is approaching you. When you start thinking about your t-shirt or your girlfriend, you will miss the ball. Because you ignore the immediate feedback. And the third condition, and this is the essence of the flow state, is a balance between your skills and the level of challenges you take. We are talking about stress. Also in Claudia's presentation, there was the idea of you choose the activity and you are a bit highly stressed just for this activity. Another person from here, I don't remember his name, but the Iron Man. Yes, I'm talking to you right now. The Iron Man, he said a wonderful thing. I always choose something just a bit higher. Just a bit higher. It's not something huge that will overload you, because there is a risk of being too stressed out and too overloaded. But if you choose a challenge that is just a bit above you, you have a great chance to enter the flow state. And it shows you what happens when we learn and when we take challenges. When we don't learn much, when we don't take challenges, we fall into apathy. Have you ever been to apathy? In apathy state? How many of you? The rest are lying. But it shows me that we actually have a choice, because we are the creators of our states. And every time we choose challenges and learning process, we choose nothing else but happiness in the form of flow. Happiness in the form of flow. About the third type of happiness, I will tell you at the end. How can you use it in your language learning? Any suggestions you have how to use it in the language learning?
Get in the flow. Try to get in the flow.
creating a calm, relaxed environment when doing a language exchange, perhaps?
Language exchange is a perfect example for me when I set the time limits, when I set specific subject, and when we have like 20 minutes or 30 minutes a person to really focus on some specific subject. Because flow is very close to hyper-focus, the idea of hyper-focus. And this state is the best for both performing, when it comes to artists, speakers, musicians, sportsmen, and learning. This is the optimum state for learning and performing. So that's why it's great to really think about it and give it a try. It can be, yeah.
I was gonna also submit consistency, so you can be like Pat Metheny. He didn't just start playing guitar, and he doesn't just play once a month. So we can copy his model by being consistent and trying to do our practicing as often as we can.
Do you want to know his quote? He said, "I practice constantly." So you've got the answer. But this is the world class, and guitar is 100% of his life. So it's a different story. Good. Any fans of positive thinking here? I'm not one of them, by the way. I'm a fan of healthy thinking and constructive thinking. And when it comes to our beliefs, which are the main component of the mindset we have and the personality we have, the beliefs are like a filter. They are just like the sunglasses. Because when I put sunglasses, everything becomes dark suddenly. And this is my reality now, that you guys look dark. And this is true.
But you look cool.
Thank you. And this is so true. You're dark. This is my reality. But this is my reality only because I have this filter. And beliefs, things that we believe, are also just a filter. Just a filter, or maybe not only just a filter, but something that really creates your reality. Because this is true for me. So, when your sunglasses are called, "I will never master pronunciation," or "I don't really have anything worth to share," or "It will take me 10 years to learn that," anything like that. Because I was talking to a few people, asking, "Are you giving a speech? Are you giving a talk?" And somebody said, "I don't really have anything to share." And that may be true sometimes, but in most cases, people have that inner need to share something, but they just don't believe they can. And this is the filter. These are the sunglasses of these people. And I say, is that true? Is that really true? There is a wonderful quote, because we have a tendency to make a lot of interpretations. Like, "I made a mistake" means I am a failure, I am stupid. But when you make a mistake, it signifies you made a mistake. Nothing else. So the quote says, if a black cat crosses the street, it signifies that the animal is going somewhere. Everything else is just our interpretation. So now I will share with you a model that is comes from rational behavior therapy. And I had an idea, because there are a lot of information during this conference, and you will not remember most of them after a few weeks. We are not all memory masters, besides Tommy. But when you have something unique, it's much easier to remember it. And you always have your palm, your hand with you, don't you? Show me your hands. Okay, so you have a great tool that you can always use just to analyze if your thinking, if your belief is healthy, is constructive or not. This is it. 5 questions, 5 closed questions. The answer can be yes or no. So when you have a belief, do you have, by the way, do you have any limiting belief that you think stops you? Any example? Can you give me an example? No. You have, but you won't share. What is it?
I believe that if I jump off the railing, I will fall to the ground.
Yes, we will check that in a while, because the first question is, is it based on reality? But something language learning related.
Is there too many Chinese characters?
There are too many Chinese characters. Okay. We can check that one. There are too many Chinese characters. So the first question is it based on facts? Is it based on facts? There are too many Chinese characters. The fact is, there are many Chinese characters, but there are too many Chinese characters. Is that a fact?
No.
So?
Just define many.
You cannot say 100% there are too many. Right? Because there are languages with many more words than in Chinese. How many characters do we have in Chinese?
30,000, I think.
30,000, but in Spanish you have 100,000 words. So compared to that. So, there are a few examples that it's not true. It's not based on facts. First thing, when you think, I don't have anything to share, is that based on facts? Because for me the fact is that everybody has life experience, and everybody has stories, and everybody has life lessons. So is it based on facts that you don't have anything to share? Second question. Does this belief help you achieve your goals? When your goal is to speak fluent Chinese, does this belief that there are too many of them, too many, does it help you achieve your goals or not? So we've got the second no. Why did I say it's easy to remember? Because you always have it with you, so you always can check. Is it based on facts? This one, when you point your goal, you can also remember that it's connected with your goal. And here comes the time for the middle finger. Are you ready? Can I? By the way, when I do it, how do you feel? Did anybody, yeah, thank you for the photos. Did anybody had emotional reaction to that? Because it's a cultural message. But this also shows you that the middle finger is just the middle finger. Everything else is your interpretation. Because I wanted to show you a tool, I didn't want to make you feel worse, embarrassed, rejected, or whatever, like Steve Kaufman says. So the third question is related to, because when I do something like that on the street, normally, I create conflict. I don't do it normally, but I know it. So I create conflict. So the third question is, does this belief help you avoid conflicts or end conflicts already happening? And this also relates to inner conflicts. For example, in your head you say, I would like to speak Chinese, but I can't. There are too many. This kind of conflict as well, not only in the outside world. So does it help you avoid conflict? We've got the third no. Looks like not very healthy belief. This finger. What is your association with this finger? Yes, marriage is connected to values that you have, right? Family can be your value. So the fourth question is, does it support your values? Does it support your values? If your value is personal growth, self-discovery, happiness, does it support your value? Not at all. And last finger. Can you do it for 10 seconds? Everybody? Yeah. I see many smiles. It means that either I am weird or
You're a freak, you said it before.
or you understand me because you're freaks as well. It changes your mood, right? So the fifth question is, does it let you feel how you want to feel? There are too many Chinese characters. Do you want to feel like that? It's a simple test. You can always do it, whatever you believe, whatever your beliefs are. You always have your hand with you. Facts, goals, conflict, values, and mood. You can always check it if you think in a healthy way, in a constructive way. So that's it. This is the high five of healthy thinking. I have a friend, she went to Japan to practice translation, but these translations were not normal translation, but translation of cars connected industry in a factory. And she spoke fluent Japanese, but she had no idea about this vocabulary connected to cars and so on. And she was lost. She was lost because she went there thinking I speak perfect Japanese, but I don't know how to work in this environment. What would you do in that situation? Because she had only 1 week or 2 weeks to really get to the right level. What would you do?
Talk to someone in the auto industry. Go to the factory.
She was working in a factory.
Read the documentation. Start learning the most important
But how?
from someone with experience.
Exactly. This is the essence. She found a Polish mechanic who was working in Japan. And she was at work for 8 hours. She had a nap, she had a coffee, and then at night, for 2 weeks, she went to study these things with him in Polish, just to understand how it works. Like, what is it called? How does it work? And the connections between these things. And after 2 weeks, everybody in the factory loved her because she had the knowledge, the practical knowledge of an engineer. Because she knew where to focus on. She knew what to choose in the first place. And probably most of you, if not all, know this 20-80 rule, the Pareto law. Pareto law. Do you know it? Who doesn't know it? 20-80 rule. Yeah, when you have the work you put in and the outcome, that only 20% of your work creates 80% of the outcome. It means there is no balance between your actions and your results. So the idea is to choose the right stuff, to choose priorities. And I use it a lot. Actually, I don't use 20-80 rule. I use doubled 20-80 rule. Because when you double it, 20% from the 20% is 4. and it still gives you 80% of the 80%, which is 45, which is 64%. I love making mistakes, even on stage. It's very liberating, you know, because I talked to Alex yesterday with one simple conclusion, that all of this language learning is self-discovery journey. You agree?
Yeah.
It's the same with public speaking, because I'm in sort of two similar communities right now, and this is self-discovery journey. That's it. So, the 4% is a small change that makes a huge difference. This is something that let that woman be respected by the factory workers after 2 weeks. They loved her because she knew what to focus on. So I do the same. I approach, let's say, professional speakers, and I ask them, what is the essence of public speaking? And I approached one of my mentors, and she said, C-U-C. I said, what? C-U-C. What are you talking about? And she said, clarity, uniqueness, connection. When you have these three, when you master these skills, you'll be a very good public speaker. When your message is clear, people can follow, people can understand you. When it's unique, so they can remember it, like the hand. And when you connect somehow to people, by using many different tools, like rhetoric questions or humor, which is always well seen, and always connects to people, because who doesn't like to laugh? David? I know. How can you use it in language learning? Give me 3 ideas. No, the 4%. CUC is in public speaking. The 4%.
Understanding your goal and doing something that will immediately get you towards that goal.
That can be one example. What else? I remember I met Luca two years ago, and we had just a while to talk about pronunciation, and I asked him this question: what should I do in the first place to improve my pronunciation? And he said, with no hesitation, work on your intonation first. And he gave me just 3 simple tools, like pause, intonation going up, and intonation going down. So when you have a sentence and you want to sound more natural, you just use these 3 tools, and it goes rise up. It changes completely. This was the 4%. 65% of all the written materials in English are 300 words. 2/3 of the language is just 300 words, because this is how we communicate. These are the basic verbs, all the words that create this general language. You cannot communicate with that, by the way, but if you start with this, you can do it in the weekend sometimes, or 1 week. You have a head start when you find this 4%. And this is also connected to the idea of modeling. Modeling comes from NLP. Do you remember Carola speaking in Budapest about NLP? So she spoke about NLP comes from the idea of modeling. So taking the best strategies from the champions, from the best therapist, business person, for the best sportsman, for all the people like this, and creating models. And CUC is an example of the model. In coaching, for example, there is a model called GROW. Goal, reality, options, and will. And when you learn the GROW model, you can do it in 1 day. You can already start doing simple coaching sessions. This is how it works. I'm not a big fan of shortcuts, but I'm a big fan of wise, smart learning. And using this doubled Pareto rule is an example of smart learning. we can model inside and outside strategies. What does it mean? I got inspired yesterday or 2 days ago when someone said, when I see a foreigner approaching me, I see a gift waiting for me to be unwrapped. So, wow. This metaphor, taken from that person, can totally transform the quality of your communication. Because when you see somebody approaching you as, I don't know, a chance to pump your ego, or a chance to, I don't know, be accepted, please accept me, or you see the gift that is just waiting for you to be unwrapped, it's a huge difference. And this is the idea of modeling the mindset as well. Because outside we can model behaviors, habits, rituals. We can model the environment in which people spend their time. But also, inside there is something much deeper, like beliefs, the metaphors, the paradigms these people have. And this is what inspires me the most. Because actually I don't go to conferences to learn. I go to conferences to connect. Because when I connect, this is when the most learning is happening. This is my interest. I told you about 3 types of happiness. And the pleasure was one, the flow was second, and there's the third one, which is called doing something beyond yourself. And you might say, it's very nice to give something. But very often, there is a risk of being taken advantage of when you just constantly, selflessly give something to people. Like you spend your life writing free articles, or just, I don't know, giving your time for free, and, I don't know, producing lots of stuff and giving. There is a risk. And of course you don't want to be a Mother Teresa, right? I don't see many monks and nuns in here. Tommy? But you don't want to become probably a charity person if you run a business or if you're a freelancer. And in psychology there was a research. There was a research of how much should we give, how much should we help others to feel happier. Because if you remember the first slide, the goal of psychology has to be make us happier, healthier, and more productive. So how much should we give to others? How much should we help to feel happier, not to feel overloaded, overwhelmed by it? And this is the magic number. 100 hours a year is the minimum. 100 hours is like 2 hours a week of meaningful help that will, scientifically proven by American psychologists, will make you happier. I know most of you do it already. Through blogs, through projects, through videos, through free series. And this is the magical number a year. 100 hours a year or a bit more. But it has to be something that you want to do. Not that you do because all the people do. Because you should. It has to be your decision. It has to be meaningful to you. Only then it will make you happier. And there's another rule saying it's better to do it, to feel happier, it's better to do it in one chunk, for example, once a week for 2 hours, than do 15 minutes every day. Because in 2 hours, when you have one chunk, you can really feel that you helped, that you gave something. Give me 3 examples of things that can be this kind of giving and helping in the language community. We have one, language is culture. How many hours does it take you a week 3, 4, perfect number, because this is 100 or more, and 3, 4 hours a week for sure makes you a happier person. What else?
Giving language learning materials.
Might be, yeah. This is more material, but when it comes to action, what can it be?
Sharing ideas on forums and helping people like do the process of like that.
Definitely. A blog article full of value with great tips. I don't know, 17 ways to learn Vietnamese, something like that. Is that useful? I'm not sure. The problem is we don't feel this satisfaction when it's not practical, this action. So it's also important to find a way that it really gets to people. And in public speaking, for example, there is a rule that says audience first, not a speaker, audience first. And they say that the most important skill for a public speaker is not speaking, it's listening. It's listening to people, to people's needs. So when you create something you want to give for free, a blog article, a video, an interview, or do, I don't know, the subtitles, for example, think what other people can get from it. If you were, let's say, your readers or your audience, yeah, you are a writer here, and you think from the perspective of your audience. What do they need? What will be useful for them? The you perspective. Creating subtitles, by the way, is very, very practical way to do it. You can do it once a week to a short video. It helps people have a comprehensible input, and you for sure improved your language by doing it. So the 4 tools are being in the right state, having high focus, and you can do that by adjusting your skills to your challenges, by setting clear goals and set off actions to know how to do it, what's the next step, and reacting to immediate feedback. Then, healthy thinking. Remember the high 5 of healthy thinking. 5 questions, you can always use them. Number 3, look for the 4%, the essence, priority, both in behavior and in mindset of people. Something that will push you forward. And number 4, give. Just give, but not constant selfless giving, but a wise giving. Wise giving. 100 hours a year or more. You know what Michelangelo said at the age of 87? He said, "I'm still learning." And this is what I wish you to say at the end of your life as well. Thank you very much. We are definitely over time, so there is no space for questions. But if there was any, David.
What's the single most important change you've made in your life that has led you to where you are today?
I will answer that by using an anecdote or a story. in Poland, when you have a birthday or anniversary, people come to you and say, życzę ci zdrowia I szczęścia. So I wish you health and happiness. But is it enough to wish it? I mean, health is something you care about, not something you wish for somebody. And happiness is something you create and you understand, not something you wish to somebody. So the biggest change for me was taking responsibility for my life, definitely.
Well, I'm a psychologist, so I have to point out several things that you mentioned. So, yeah, sorry. Well, so the goal of psychology is not to make people happier and more productive. It is to understand how humans work. And there are different branches of psychology. So some of those things that you mentioned can be part of industrial psychology or clinical psychology. But you also have experimental psychology, biological psychology, which try to understand how people work. And I think that is very important. Well, it's a comment, a general comment. Well, there'll be a question as well. So another thing is that I think you confuse slightly philosophy with psychology, because the point of psychology is not really to so most of psychology is not to really help people to improve their lives. And another thing is that, well, NLP is not considered as part psychology, and it's very well, controversial to say, at least, really. So yeah, I wouldn't really mix it up with psychology, for one thing, and I would like to see references.
As I said, everything practical is of my interest. I'm not a fan of too many theories, and this is what is practical psychology for me. So I don't want to explore too deeply something that will not change anything. Like one of my clients, he said, I know it all, but I can't help people. So I rather have something very simple, and I don't care if it's from psychology, philosophy, NLP, how do you call it? I just take something simple, I test it in my life, I question it, I don't take it just for granted. And then, if it works for me, I can share it with somebody else.
That's the difference between the anecdote and the proper testing, like experimental, when you actually have test something on more people and you can actually see that it's live. So that's the difference. If it works for one person, then it's fine. But I would steer away from calling it psychology, which is based on scientific methods, which is totally different. So just
Don't argue about the language at the language conference.
well, that's the place to do it.
Yes, I would like to add 2 comments. First of all, to be happier, I think that we should learn to be gratitude about everything. For example, when we are walking and experiencing the air we are breathing, so everything, this is very important. And the second thing is to live the moment, because we tend to be in the past, to be in the future, planning, or so just living the moment and being grateful. I think this is a very good thing.
The idea of focus is being in the moment. When you have high focus, you are in the moment, in your flow state. This is one thing. And then giving is actually gratefulness. And this is a test I do sometimes. Whenever I think I don't have enough, I just start giving. And it turns out I have more than enough. So when you give, you are grateful automatically. But fully agree.
2 things. First off, I just wanted to say thank you. That was really, really good talk. You summarized so many points, and I've also been reading about this, so I just wanted to add one thing about the gratitude. One thing that they've tested in psychology is, they ask people to keep gratitude journals, and then they tested, does that actually work? And with a slight spin on that, it might work better for you. It might work that the gratitude journal works great, or it might be that you can actually think about your life without one thing that you're really grateful for. So picture it without that thing, and then that's how you feel more gratitude. Or, for example, if you think of something that you got, and then you think of how easily you could have missed that opportunity, then it becomes infinitely more special to you. So it's just a slight tweak of the thought, but just wanted to share it with you guys. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. Iron Man.
What would you say, what's the 4% of that formula? So what's the essential of that formula? What's the 4% of that?
The 4%. This is finding priorities. This is finding small changes that make the most difference. This is it. Thank you very much.